Hello and welcome back to Hammer Horror in Order. I'm Josh. I'm joined here with Donnie
Yo.
and the Professor Smoke.
Well,
Of course, we are from the All American Spook Show podcast, and that podcast comes out every Monday, 6 p.m. East, right here on the YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts. So we encourage you to check those out. But basically, the whole point of what we do here on Hammer Horror in Order, the definition basically is right there in the title. We started at the beginning of the Hammer Horror / thriller releases. We started all the way back with the first edition a few months back with the Quatermass Experiment from 1955, and we're watching them in the chronological order in which they came out. So now we've worked our way up to May of 1959 with the eighth release, The Hound of the Baskervilles. It came out May 4th, 1959. And it's yet another one, Smoke, that was directed by Terence Fisher.
yeah.
The biggest difference here, though, is that I think we have a new screenplay writer up to this point. The screenplay for this one was written by Peter Bryan. So most of these that we've done up to this point were some combination of Terence Fisher and Jimmy Sangster. So this is the first time we've got Peter Bryan in the mix.
And we'll see what happens with that, right?
Yeah, well, two
Cheers.
two more constants here. We've got Peter Cushing, of course, and we've got Christopher Lee. So we've already seen a couple of movies especially Peter Cushing. I think he's been in just about every damn one of these other than those Quatermass movies, right?
No.
Yeah. And Christopher Lee, I think we've only seen like maybe a couple times beforehand, but this is really feels like the first time so far, and the ones that we've watched where they're acting on screen a lot together. Because the ones that we've watched before, like Horror of Dracula, where they were both in it, and Curse of Frankenstein. No, yeah, Curse of Frankenstein were like, yeah, they were on screen a handful of times, but really it was more like Christopher Lee is Dracula or Christopher Lee was Frankenstein's monster. So I don't even think he had any lines in that one, right? So like, this is the first time they're really interacting, right?
Yeah, because I don't remember it in Horror of Dracula. It was a while before they were even on screen at the same time.
Yeah,
But with him being Dracula, it's just he's a lot of hissing and
yeah. Not a lot of dialogue between them until you got towards the end of that one.
Yeah.
I feel this is the first time so far out of the now 8 movies that we've watched that they're truly interacting and acting together.
And that's one of the highlights, I think, of this is that interaction, the acting between them two and together.
This, of course, it's a Sherlock Holmes movie. It's based on the novel of the same name by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I've never read the book, so I don't know how true this adaptation is, but I know that there have been a number of versions of the Hound of the Baskervilles put to film, right?
Yeah, going all the way back to the silent era, really. I mean, quite a few. And I have read the story of the original Hound of the Baskervilles, but it's been back in probably late 80s to early 90s. So I wouldn't be able to comment on the accuracy of this versus the original story.
And, the thing about this one is too, like, this doesn't feel like a direct horror movie to me. I mean, there's a lot of, feels more like a mystery thriller movie that has horror elements in it, right?
Yeah, that I do remember about the story, which is accurate to the story of of the Hound of the Baskervilles. Story itself also plays on those gothic horror elements more so probably than any other of Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes stories. Even though some of them have various thriller horror elements, this is probably the one that had the most. So that part is at least accurate. Now, necessarily, I wouldn't be able to, the details of that, what goes on here with the Hound and with the deaths and whatnot. I don't know for sure how accurate that is to it, but yeah, that sort of gothic horror element is in the story too.
Yeah, this was actually supposed to be like the first of many, basically like a series of Sherlock Holmes movies that were produced by Hammer, but Hammer fans are used to horror and they didn't want to. It was supposed to star Peter Cushing obviously in the in that role, but yeah, Hammer fans weren't really vibing with a Hammer movie without any monsters. So yeah, they didn't really buy into that.
Yeah, I mean, because we don't want to go too far into spoiler territory here, but like there's no Frankenstein's monster here. There's no Dracula. There's nothing like that. None of your classic quote unquote universal monsters, right? But
Yes.
the horror element here is that there's some type of curse and that there's something close to kind of a werewolf kind of thing going on here, right?
Yeah, they had not yet done Curse of I think, well, not Curse. What is the werewolf movie? Maybe it is Curse of the Wolf Man or Curse of the Werewolf. But at any point they hadn't done that. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if people knew who, of course, Sherlock Holmes, Hound of the Baskervilles, but if you ever look at the poster, the original release poster art for this, it almost does kind of give you that that feeling of that this might be maybe are they going to go to the werewolf type thing of this? Because I mean, you got this big, huge hound wolf looking head on takes up most of the poster art. So yeah, that might have been a little bit of what do you call it? A little bit of trickery on their part as far as
switch.
yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. Although, like I said, there are those horror elements in there. You've got the castle, right? Like, well, I guess it's kind of a castle, right? But you've got that atmosphere. You've got that bog that that's in between and stuff. So like, there's a lot of creepy horror elements to it, but it's really more of a whodunit, like kind of a Scooby Doo pull off the mask kind of thing, right?
You mentioned the castle. No, it was that castle was the same. It was the same set that they used for Castle of Dracula in Horror of Dracula. I don't know if it looked familiar. It was just shot in a different angle. It was just redressed. It was the same set.
Yeah, I think that was a place, and I'm blanking on what the location is there, but like that was like a thing that Hammer used a lot.
Yeah, I think that they owned it, right? I believe that was.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's something they owned and even other studios would come in and rent it from them and shoot stuff there. I forget the name of it. We'll have to do that on a further episode, but I think they had a name for that location, that castle or whatever, or castle looking structure or whatever.
Castle Grayskull.
Yes, that's.
Yeah, I just looked it up. There it is. Sure enough, Castle Grayskull. Yeah, it says here that filming took place on location at Chobham Common and Frensham Ponds, both in Surrey. But I think it was a location that they used quite a bit for a good handful of their movies. So I don't think that was a strange location for sure. I'll say another one that really stood out in this movie to me was André Morell as Dr. Watson.
Watson, yeah, yeah, he was
did a really good job in that role here. A lot of times, often too, in Sherlock Holmes stories, Dr. Watson is kind of the somewhat. A lot of times, it depends on how it's being portrayed. Sometimes he's kind of the real smart, hands-on kind of guy, and then Sherlock Holmes will kind of swoop in and yes, here's the reason here, clever deduction or whatever the lines are. They kind of play that a little differently here in this one, and that like it really did seem like Sherlock was always about 5 steps ahead of everyone.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah, they have Watson's kind of like the sort of down to earth type character that you kind of identify with, where Sherlock Holmes is, of course, the whole brains of the operation as he would be, but more so, like you said in this movie, where he's not like Watson's not necessarily helping him to solve these crimes. He's just sort of he's there as something. I mean, you can kind of, like I said, identify with him.
Yeah, he's truly his assistant, and really, I thought for a while there, Peter Cushing was just going to check out on this movie because like he's like,
yeah.
Oh, I got this other shit I got to do. Watson, you go help out old Johnny Baskerville here, and then like he just kind of disappears for 15-20 minutes.
He took off like Gandalf or something.
Yeah. So I was
got some business to take care of.
Cushing must have had another movie to shoot, but then he pops back up. But
yeah. And also, you mentioned it already, kind of, but the locations were cool because they were out, and well, you could definitely tell some of the sets. It has that stagey feel that not just Hammer, but a lot of films did have, because a lot of it was done on a soundstage, probably, and brought in some stuff and the fog machine and the mist and all that, so it gives it that feel. But the shots that they shot on location out and like you said, probably in Surrey, were some cool areas. In that whole abbey, the ruins of the abbey, where not most of the story, but where the essential scenes in the movie take place, was a cool set. I mean, not a cool set, but it's cool. I don't think it was a set. Hell, I don't know. Maybe it was. I haven't looked into that.
Either way, it was all good.
Actual ruins or what?
Yeah, it was all good set design and shot well, everything. I mean, like all in all, I thought it was a pretty good take on the story. I did see also that this was the first time, although it had been done, like you said, a time or two before this, this was the first time that it was filmed in color.
Yeah.
Also, I noticed another thing too. These are always kind of cool. In the drive-ins back in 1959, it played as part of a double bill with The Four Skulls of Jonathan Drake.
Yeah, I saw that poster too. The poster for that, the double feature poster.
That'll pretty much wrap it up as far as like just some of that information or whatever. So we put our heads together and we came up with the hammer rating beforehand. So all three of us together, we came up with just a flat even 3 hammers for this one. I really think it's worth a watch. Obviously, if you're watching this, you've probably, if you haven't watched it, you're at least a fan of Hammer horror, and I would definitely recommend you go checking it out. It's different in the sense of like, it's not necessarily like, say, Curse of Frankenstein, Horror of Dracula, stuff like that. It's not a monster movie, not a classic horror in that respect. But if you dig those old like Sherlock Holmes stories, those whodunit mystery type things, there's a lot of those elements here, and it's really well done. And obviously with Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, as early on at the top of their game. I mean, it's just really well done. What do you guys think?
Yeah, this was, first of all, I think it was a first time watch for all three of us, right?
Yeah.
This was it was a cool surprise in that it was a movie with Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing that I hadn't seen yet, and I'm sure we'll come across more of those as we get further into the Hammer series and whatnot. But yeah, I thought seeing that interplay between them two was the best we've seen up to this point in Hammer's filmography. As far as not talking about the storyline necessarily, because we obviously liked Horror of Dracula and Curse of Frankenstein as movies better than this one, but just that acting between the two of them was great to see. Even if the storyline on this one was, whether it followed the Sherlock or the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle story to the T or not, was serviceable, but probably maybe it had something to do with the screenwriting. I don't know, because like I said, it was a different screenwriter this time around than the Horror of Dracula and Curse of Frankenstein film. So if there was a not so much of a strong point, it might be in that screenwriting maybe. But the dialogue I thought was great, and the interaction between the two.
Yeah, your 3 leads, Cushing, Lee, and André Morell, do a great job in this one. So highly recommend it. Donnie, you got any parting thoughts with it?
Really, the only thing I would say that was worth mentioning was that Christopher Lee was in 6 additional adaptations of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes. He was in 6 additional movies and also Peter Cushing reprised his role as Sherlock Holmes in 4 additional Sherlock Holmes movies, but they were never in the same movie. Like, this was the first and the last time that they ever appeared in the same Sherlock Holmes movie together.
Well, as far as this one is concerned, we'll leave it there. But we've got another really, I think, kind of a cool one coming up next month, and we're staying with 1959. Actually, the next couple movies we've got the next couple months are in 1959. But even though we're in the podcast and on some of our other YouTube series, we're heading into the Spook Show Summer Disaster, that won't affect what happens here on Hammer Horror in Order. So we're just going to keep plowing through as far as in chronological order, and we're going to be watching The Mummy from 1959. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. I think that's going to be another cool. And I may have watched that one before, but I think this will be a first time watch for myself.
Yeah, same for me.
It, but it's been a while.
Yeah.
You haven't seen it, Donnie?
I have not. No, it'll be a first time.
Oh, yeah, it'll be like I've seen it at least once, but it's been so long ago that I've forgotten the storyline of it. So it'll at least be somewhat fresh for me. So that'll be good.
So come back right here on the YouTube channel next month for The Mummy. And also, we encourage you to hang out here on the YouTube channel and watch all the other cool stuff we got going on. Video Vortex, Grindhouse Gutter, our latest new series, Traumatic Experience, where we go through the Trauma Films library. That one just started literally just a couple weeks ago. So we encourage you to go check it out. So for Will, who couldn't be with us, Donnie, Professor Smoke, I'm Josh. We're from the All American Spook Show, and we will talk to you next month for The Mummy.